Xi Jinping made history today. The Chinese president landed in Riyadh. A red carpet awaited him. A historic Arab-China summit is to take place. And as the cameras of the world zoomed into Saudi Arabia, it was the United States that was watching most closely, with worry, with fear. America was watching its oil diplomacy fall apart. Let's first play out for you the visuals of Xi Jinping's arrival. Have a look at the grand welcome that the Chinese leader received there. What you are really seeing is American oil diplomacy falling apart. What you are seeing is America losing the oil war, one that has been triggered by the war in Ukraine, and one that the US had dreamt of winning through Saudi Arabia's support. But America's oldest oil ally is slipping into China's embrace. It is switching sides. And this tectonic shift is being led by Xi Jinping's historic outreach. Saudi Arabia is only the third country that the Chinese president is visiting since the pandemic started. Kazakhstan was the first, Uzbekistan the second. But that was different. Samarkand, remember, was hosting the Shanghai Cooperation Summit, or the SCO, an organization China founded in 1996. It's almost sentimental. With Saudi Arabia, China's ties are lubricated by oil. 17% of China's oil comes from Saudi Arabia. That's more oil than China imports from any other country. But that's all that there is to the Saudi-China relationship. There are no joint counter-terrorism efforts or strategic partnership. But what there is now is a common enemy, the United States of America, that unites these otherwise distant countries. China and the US have kept no secret of their growing animosity. Washington is openly supporting Taiwan, exposing China's nuclear plans. And China, on the other hand, is openly name-calling the United States. The biggest troublemaker being the latest. The relationship between Saudi Arabia and the US also has been falling apart under the Biden administration. The very oil that powered their relationship has now started driving a rift between the two sides. The US wants Saudi-led oil cartel OPEC to produce more oil. Riyadh does not agree to that. In October itself, the OPEC Plus decided to cut oil production. And what followed was a spat between Saudi Arabia and the US officials, and Biden calling the cut unnecessary. So that is the backdrop against which Saudi Arabia and China are coming closer. And it's bound to shake the foundation of the Saudi-US relationship. Also have implications for America's oil politics. You see, America has been going about town asking countries to stop buying Russian oil. Washington says Russia is funding its war by selling oil. America wants to block Russia's oil trade, be it through sanctions, pricing policies, or plain politics. But America will not get what it wants till the Saudi-led OPEC produces more oil, till Saudi Arabia cooperates with America. What's happening is a far cry. Saudi Arabia is switching sides, joining hands with China, a country that's on Russia's side and against the United States. America's oldest oil ally is slipping away from its embrace. This is as embarrassing as it gets for Joe Biden. And to understand that, let's look at what this shift in balance means for China, Saudi Arabia, and America. Let's start with China. The visit showcases China's growing clout in West Asia. Also, it gets to rub this closeness on America's face. America is supposed to be Saudi Arabia's biggest security guarantor. What is a country that America brands a security threat doing in a kingdom that was once called America's 51st state? This is a question the American President Joe Biden would hate answering, and China would rejoice at that sight. And what's in it for Saudi Arabia? Xi Jinping's visit, I should remind you, comes following an invitation from Saudi Arabia's King Salman. Basically, it is the Saudis who laid the path for this visit. And why is that? Because Xi Jinping's visit is a chance for Riyadh to deepen its partnership with the Chinese at a time when the kingdom is trying to diversify its economy and diplomacy. This is also a country that's trying to modernize itself. The Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman is obsessed about projecting an image of a modern Saudi Arabia. And this is where China comes in with its technology. China, in fact, is already building mega projects in Saudi Arabia, setting up 5G infrastructure. You see, between the Saudis and the Chinese, it is an energy for technology or energy for trade kind of relationship. It's very different from the terms of engagement Riyadh had with Washington. Of course, there was trade there as well. There was oil for weapons. The US brought arms and guns to the table, and Saudi the energy. But is this time-tested relationship relevant today? West Asia is trying to move away from war. It is signing peace accords, and the rest of the world is slowly trying to move away from oil and gas, pivoting, or at least intending to pivot towards greener energy. What Saudi Arabia needs right now is not weapons, but a partner that can help it diversify its economy. A partner with a big enough market with enterprises that Saudi Arabia can invest in. And that is where China comes into the picture. And this 3-day historic visit comes with rather loud geopolitical signaling. What we are looking at is a jam-packed agenda. Xi Jinping will be taking part in 3 summits: Saudi-China, Gulf-China, and the first Arab-China summit. These summits will be attended by more than 30 heads of state and leaders of international organizations. The Chinese mouthpiece Global Times is calling the Arab summit a strategic choice for both sides. And for a change, and perhaps for the first time ever, we agree with Global Times. What happens in these 3 days will lay the groundwork for a strategic partnership. One that reports say Xi Jinping will be putting his signature on before he takes off for Beijing. And where does all of this leave America? Isolated, defeated. When Joe Biden was visiting Saudi Arabia, he boasted, "We will not walk away and leave a vacuum to be filled by China." Well, China has brought to life Joe Biden's geopolitical nightmare. It has swooped in and offered the Arab world respect vis-a-vis American arrogance. While America was trying to tell the world that West Asia is no longer its priority, that it needs to focus on Europe, Asia Pacific, and not West Asia, you have the Chinese ambassador to Saudi Arabia giving interviews stating that China places relations with the kingdom as a priority. And it's a contrast that suits Saudi Arabia and its crown prince, Mohammed bin Salman. Xi Jinping's historic visit to Riyadh is MBS's chance to show Joe Biden who really is in charge of bilateral ties. This is MBS telling Biden that while the US-Saudi partnership may have been in tune with the need and times of the post-war era, China and Saudi friendship makes more sense in the post-pandemic world. It's a pill too bitter for Joe Biden because it marks another geopolitical failure for his administration. As if Afghanistan was not bad enough. Now you have Saudi Arabia highlighting how Biden has been a diplomatic disaster. And you know what's worse? All of this comes at a time when oil and gas have become the most precious commodities following the war in Ukraine. If Biden wants to keep his voters happy, he needs to keep the oil prices in check. And for that, he needs Saudi Arabia and its oil cartel. But guess which side the Saudis are leaning towards? It's the Far East. If a force 4 is a perfect match, Saudi Arabia and China is a match made in heaven. WION now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the news on the move.